Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about the dominant culture. But before I do that, I just wanted to say, hey, what's up, guys? I know I haven't been in the videos physically most recently, so I figured I'd be on camera for a few minutes today. Usually I've just been doing the kind of behind the scenes look at what's going on, but I'm here, I'm alive, I'm working on my health, I'm still making videos, and I appreciate all your support. I want to remind you guys that we are completely independent supported. If you want to get involved with partnering, sponsoring, putting banners on the website, contributing in some way, writing articles, anything as far as collaborating, email me at derrick@theconsciousresistance.com. That's derrick@theconsciousresistance.com. And yeah, follow us on Minds, follow us on Steemit. We are also on BitChute, which doesn't seem to work that great all the time, but I'm still trying to get all those videos loaded up there on the alternative platforms. I'm mainly using Minds. We're using the Discord channel now. You can check the links below the video. And I also have a text list. So lots of exciting ways to keep in touch with me. But I also mainly want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. As always, check out our website every single day because I'm constantly uploading new articles and insights into what's going on around the world and what you guys might want to pay attention to. So check that out and sign up for our weekly email newsletter. So this video is more of kind of getting out a thought process I've been working on for a little while. I read this article right here from Scientific American called "The Race to Save Colombia's Uncontacted Tribes from Outsiders." I borrowed this Scientific American from a friend. I don't really read Scientific American too much. Sometimes they are full of propaganda, but I read everything, honestly, whether or not it's propaganda or not. I just read everything. And so this gives the story, of course you got to pay for it if you want to read it online, but in here they tell you about a couple different things, namely that there are about 14 to 15 different uncontacted tribes in Colombia's deep Amazon. And there are more uncontacted tribes around the world. What this really means is just that there are tribes that have not been assimilated, whether by force or by choice, into the modern mainstream culture. And they still hold on to their indigenous ways. They might actually, in some cases, like we've seen in parts of Africa and parts of the Amazon, they actually might push away people who try to come in. There was a big deal a couple months back. We talked about the young man Christian ministry who tried to go visit this other uncontacted tribe and ended up getting killed by them because they have a record for that. They've made it clear to the outside world they don't want to be a part of it and that they're trying to remain isolated. And so in the past, colonization has led to Christian missionaries, conquerors, conquistadors coming from Europe, coming from elsewhere to take over indigenous populations. And this happened to the indigenous people of Europe first in their own countries before it spread elsewhere. And over time, people have developed, I guess you could say, more of a conscious mentality in saying, hey, like, we're coming into contact with these tribes and our diseases are killing them. Our ways are, forcing them to change. And sometimes, again, the ways that we've been forced to change as indigenous people in America and elsewhere have been very forceful, done by force. And it's important for us to recognize that, to recognize the history of what's going on in the world, right? So as people are recognizing that, they're starting to shift and say, maybe we shouldn't just force our contact onto these tribes. Maybe we should protect them. And that's kind of where society has gone in some of these places like Colombia and elsewhere. The article talks about efforts to protect the uncontacted tribes. And so you have some tribes who have already been contacted, and maybe they still preserve some of their indigenous ways, but they've also started to maybe use modern technology or dress in modern clothes and things like that, Western, kind of modern American look. But some of them see themselves as kind of the defenders of the uncontacted tribes. Like they're the first progression. Like you have the people who grow up in this mainstream culture, whatever we were going to call it. We're going to figure that out in just a moment. And then you have those who grew up in indigenous communities, or maybe their ancestors did just a couple generations back, and over time they've started to get assimilated. Now that group of people, the first contacted, are starting to try to protect the uncontacted tribes. So one of the other elements that the article talks about here is that there was a recent research paper, I think in 2015, that discussed the idea that maybe protecting these tribes and keeping them from being contacted is actually not the most humane thing to do. Maybe people should actually have some, they give it a word like, half contact or something like that, partial contact. But basically the researchers were saying, look, when you look at the reality of the situation, there are drug smugglers, there are illegal loggers, and all kinds of actual criminals who are going through these deep parts of the Amazon to try to smuggle drugs, smuggle people, or to illegally log, and they often will come into contact with these uncontacted tribes, and those people generally don't give a shit about preserving the indigenous ways, about keeping them from getting diseases, and so the tribes come into contact with those people. There have been reports of them then getting sick from illnesses exposed through those smugglers and these illegal loggers, as well as sometimes these gangs and cartels who are involved in this. They might actually just kill the people, rape the women, and take some of them as slaves or take them as hostages. This has also been reported to have happened. So the debate is a lot more, nuanced than it might seem, because of course for me, as somebody who is pursuing learning more and more about my indigenous ancestry and where my family comes from, like, this is something that's important to me, that I feel like, yeah, people should be left alone. Also, as an anarchist, people should be sovereign. They should be left to their own devices. That's where I first come from. And then I also have to kind of balance that with what this research shows, that maybe due to unforeseen circumstances and to shitty behavior from the past from various colonizers, we can't have that idyllic world where we just let them be and leave them alone, because in the interest of helping them, leaving them alone might actually make things worse. So I don't know. It just got me thinking about this. I'd love to hear you guys' comments about this. And if you have a chance to go to a bookstore and pick up an old copy of this, or, you want to pay to read it online, or maybe you can find it for free online, then please check it out. I think you'd find it very interesting. But overall, though, it got me thinking about a couple of ideas. Essentially, what has now come to be known as the dominant culture, right? Have you guys heard this phrase? The dominant culture, I think, is used. We'll just do a quick little DuckDuckGo search and see what pops up, and I'll give you guys the dictionary definition of it. But from what I've seen, it's used by more and more activists in a way to describe this culture that exists in the mainstream, that, obviously by the name, that dominates, that takes over. And it's not necessarily a culture that could be called American or European or Western. And even modern, I think, is kind of insufficient, because, modern is just constantly changing, right? It's just the current position in time. So according to Wikipedia, right, for whatever that's worth, a dominant culture is a cultural practice that is dominant with a particular political, social, or economic entity in which multiple cultures are present. So every country, every nation, every community, every subculture is going to have various shades of different political, socio-economic values, and the dominant culture, of course, is the one that maintains dominance over that. Now, where it comes from, as they mention here, like in Native American indigenous studies, where people talk about the dominant culture being described as Anglo, white, middle class, etc., I like to think of it as more modern, because I don't think it's enough to say, oh, it's just the Europeans. The dominant culture is European, and that's why it's parasitic, and the Europeans are the problem, the white people are the problem. I know that there are some indigenous people who might take that worldview, but I also like to think of what John Trudell talked about. He talked about the parasite class, the psychopath class, and that they are a parasite on this planet. Whatever color they come in, just like some people say Zionists can be any religion, can be any type of person. It's not just Jews, or it's just, things like that, right? Bigots can be any type. The dominant culture can be, any individual who knowingly, consciously or unknowingly supports and then integrates into this dominant culture. And I talked about this a couple years ago. I'm going to show you guys just this really quick video here. This is Derrick Broze in December 2014. I'm going to play this little clip for you guys so you can hear what I'm talking about. In this video, you can hear me trying to find the words to describe, I guess, what is now known as the dominant culture. At that time, this video was called Unraveling the Mainstream Culture. That's what I talked about it, because I was trying to identify the factors that contribute to creating a herd status mentality. So just check this short clip out, and then I will be right back.
Attempt to do that today. I've been having this thought process trying to identify not just the mentality, but the type of person, the culture that is responsible for subduing people and making them docile and willing to accept the state and all these horrible things. Some of us, we call this statism, right? A love for the government. Well, to me, statism is only a piece of the problem. Statism, yes, is the problem, that people willingly worship and follow a government that doesn't have its best interests at heart. Like, that's not a good thing. That's horrible, right? We would hope that they would have a better sense of self, a better better concern for themselves, to not support something that is killing them, literally killing us every day. But that's not the case. We see people do support the state, and they support its programs, as we just said, through war and through torture. But I think at the heart of it, it's not just statism. It's not just this worship, blind worship of government. That's why I talk about the conscious resistance, that it's not just the government that we're worshiping. It's really that we don't believe in ourselves, and we need to become stronger, more conscious, empowered people in order to get past that, right? So it's this deeper way of thinking. But when I try to look around and I see this culture, right? I was thinking about this as far as yuppies, right? Yuppies moving into parts of the neighborhood. And what I mean by yuppies, I guess they call that young urban professionals. And what I mean by that is, and I hate to use generalizations like that because I hate the word hipster, because I don't even know what the word hipster means. Hipster, yuppies, I guess they're probably the same thing. But that's coming from a judgmental mindset, right? And I find myself being like, damn, why am I judging these people because they're moving to the city from the suburbs? Or like, I'll go like, damn, white people, why are all these white people coming out here? But then I'm like, wait, that's racist. That's not compassionate. What is it? It's not just that they're from the suburbs. That's not the problem. It's not just that they're, white, whatever color they are. That's not it either. It's this mentality of person that doesn't follow their own thinking, that really just whatever's provided for them they're going to accept, right? It's this mainstream thinking. And I don't just mean mainstream in the sense of, okay, mainstream media, we know the problem with that. We know why mainstream media is bad. It's about controlling people and dictating the message that the oppressors want, right? Then you look at the mainstream music, right? Most mainstream music sucks too. I mean, yeah, here and there we all can kind of enjoy a mainstream radio pop song, right? But for the most part, that culture is not a culture that is conscious. It's a culture of like party, be self-absorbed, don't give a shit. Just all this stuff that's not going to lead to long-term happiness or fulfillment. And then we have like mainstream music, movies pushing their various messages. Then you look at just the mainstream clothing, which is real, I would say, more generic and kind of like a certain everybody. If you have a certain haircut, or tattoos are getting more acceptable, but even if you just look different than the average person, you can change your hair a little bit here, you can wear this weird shirt here or there, but if you go outside too far of those realms, you're just looked at like, whoa, what are you doing here? And why are you dressing like that? Why are you acting like that? Why are you being an individual? And so we see it in the music, movies, politics, culture in general, clothing, lifestyle. And I think that this is just the person that lives and is told like, okay, you go to school, you follow that pattern, like you get a job, you get married, and you live your life and you do that. And nothing against those things for those.
All right, I think I played enough of that video, but I think you guys also get the point, right? That this culture that I'm describing is not just, mainstream again is one way to describe it, but I don't think that really pins it down. And that's what I was trying to do as far back as 2014 to figure out, what do we call this? Again, some people call it the dominant culture. Some people would say it's Western, it's Anglo, there's different ways to name it, but I don't think that really pins it down. But I do think that there is a dominant culture, whatever we want to call it, that exists. And that dominant culture, the paradigm that is displayed, again, through media, through music, through movies, through the news, through all the various influences that surround our minds as we're growing up in this world, those influences push us towards this dominant culture, which is obsessed with money, which is obsessed with paying attention to what other people are doing, self-judgment, partying, mindlessness. The mainstream culture is not this really healthy, happy thing, right? You have to go seek that and find it on your own. That's why most of us spend our lives unlearning things that we were previously taught, because we realize all the bullshit we were taught before was exactly that, bullshit. So I just wanted to check in with you guys and use this Scientific American article about these uncontacted tribes as a way to talk about that. They are coming from a culture that is definitely not the dominant culture. It's the vast minority. They're a small population of uncontacted people in the middle of the Amazon holding on to their indigenous ways as the world around them is marching forward to progress via technology despite any cost to any other cultures. And as individuals, as an individualist anarchist, I think that they have the autonomy and they should be able to decide what happens to them. But at the same time, I think the world around us is changing so fast and so quickly. It's difficult to just say that, that they should be left there without, to the consequences. What if that means they all die because we didn't do enough efforts to prevent that, or to preserve them and help them But what if they would prefer that? What if they'd rather die than join? What if we save them and help them? And talking collectively here, but what if these scientists go help them and these preservationists go help them, and then later down the line, generations come and they regret this. They're like, wow, I wish our ancestors would have held out because we would have had some connection to our ways. And now we're just a part of this blah, mainstream, bland, dominant culture. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please do subscribe to theconsciousresistance.com. Bookmark our page. Check out the website. Check out the YouTube channel, the Steam It page, the Discord channel, the Remind text list, the Minds page, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys soon. There's not going to be a live show this week, but I'll be back on Monday. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.